Restoring the drill press no one heard about turned out to be a big adventure. This is the Flott Boy Electric. It's somewhat around 6 years old and it's still working. Back when I bought it, the Boy Electric wasn't looking that good. It stood in an old dusty garage, where it slowly became the victim to time. It used to belong into a car workshop, and as you can tell, they really didn't treat it that good. I restored it completely, disassembled it to all its pieces, I cleaned everything, replaced the bearings, and even though it worked, I ran into a huge electrical problem. But why am I so sure you don't know the Boy Electric? You can't find any information on the Boy Electric on the internet. And I mean no information. There's only one forum post where someone posted a photo of a restored machine, and all the other links are just people trying to sell it. So I can tell you, this was an adventure. But let me begin where it all started. My old drill press, actually the first one I ever bought, is not only a little bit underpowered, but also not in best condition anymore. And by that I mean it simply isn't working. With a very intense project coming up that requires a lot of drilling, I knew I had to get a proper machine. But I also don't have thousands of euros that I can spare for buying one. So I knew I had to get something that has very good quality, but might be already a little bit old. And this is where I found the Flott Boy Electric. There were a few people trying to sell them, and they're asking for a very different amount of money. And of course, there are big differences in condition. So I did the only right thing and bought the cheapest one I could find. This thing is so heavy, halfway there I thought I'm gonna drop it. Cleaning the machine was actually very satisfying and extremely rewarding. Of course you could use a bigger cleaning utensil than a toothbrush, but it definitely has some meditating aspects to it. Seeing this thing start to shine again was the moment I realized what nice machinery I bought. I personally don't like the restorations where people are repainting everything and trying to make them look like new. I prefer just cleaning them and leaving the stamps of time on them. I think it just adds some character to it and make them look a little bit more professional. And also no paint job I could apply to it would make it justice. Disassembling everything turned out to be way harder than I thought. Basically every part that should be moving started to rust, which even caused some parts to swell a bit. So like you see here, this cylinder simply can't move at all. And exactly this cylinder is actually a very critical part of the machine. It should let you slide the electric motor forward a bit, so the tension on the belt loses and you can change the speed or the belt entirely. Now you've seen me trying to hammer the entire thing in, but somehow it wasn't moving at all. And this was the moment I found this little set screw here, which also is clamping the cylinder and is completely rusted as well. So I sprayed that with some WD-40 and luckily found a T60 bit to remove it. But this simply didn't seem to help. I got a bit frustrated and stopped recording. But then the motor moved a bit. I could get the belt off and start wiggling the motor itself out. But as you can see, this cylinder is still stuck. After a big back and forth and a lot of WD-40, I actually got it to move a little bit. The part that was facing inward is actually so rusted that I thought I might just hammer it out this way. This was only the first slight win against the rust, but at that point I clearly didn't know what was waiting for me. I went on with disassembling the machine and wanted to tackle this front wheel now. And that also turned out to be way harder than I expected, which I think was a general theme over the whole process, but I think this is exactly what I enjoyed so much. But there were a few parts that were absolutely overstepping, and this front wheel is definitely one of them. Learning how this machine works by disassembling it has something very satisfying to it. And that is something I remember doing as a kid as well. I remember one specific time where my parents gave me an old camera and a screwdriver and said, disassemble it, and if you can, try to rebuild it afterwards. And to be honest, this kind of feels the same, but things have changed, I'm older now, and this machine is actually way easier built than a camera. Which doesn't mean that I didn't have problems with it. It's an art to disassemble stuff you don't know, especially when rust is involved. Because there might be a hidden screw or a trick that prevents a part to come off, and often it's not 100% obvious. Everyone that disassembled car interior parts knows exactly what I'm talking about. But luckily, this thing has no plastic parts that break easily. Sometimes the rust needs the use of a hammer though. How much force? No idea. Is there anything in the way? No idea. But it's the only way to test it. And in these cases, you need to have a sense for the difference between blocked and stuck. I think especially people working on cars can definitely relate to that feeling. For me and this machine, that meant that I tried to remove a few parts, which turned out to be difficult. Then I stepped back, looked at it for another 10 minutes, tried to get another perspective, double check if it's really just rust or indeed a screw or something. Getting back to it, sometimes this was enough, sometimes the part was still stuck, and everything started again. We are slowly getting into the more mechanical parts, which include all the spinning parts and therefore all the bearings. You could already hear that some of them needed to be replaced, but that turned out to be easier said than done. The spindle was one of the more cooperative parts though. It came apart easily, with only a few satisfying taps from the hammer. A big benefit of having an old machine like this one is that they are built with standard parts that are still available. After I got all the bearings out, I searched for the code that identifies them. And then I could order new ones from the exact same manufacturer. I told you already that this front wheel was a nightmare, and exactly this part had what sounded to be the most broken bearing. I already tried everything that sounded reasonable for my unexperienced hammer sense, and nothing helped. So I accepted defeat and consulted a professional, my dad. As you can see here, these two pins wedge everything together, and from the other side, and as I said, these are the worst bearings, I can't pull them out because they are blocked.
Von unten komme ich nicht an die Kugellager, weil das hier zu ist.
Means I need to pull out the wheel. I tried hammering it out, but nothing happened. WD-40 of course applied. I simply can't get it off. While I was waiting, I started cleaning off some grease and removing some rust. This was really refreshing. Removing the rust had kind of the satisfaction level of these rug cleaning videos. You know what I'm talking about. my dad being a locksmith slash metalworker slash mechanic, I knew the smell of steel, grease and oil very well. It's still a combination that sparks a bit of joy when I encounter it. This project gave me not only that, but it also reminded me of that unique feeling that you get when you successfully fix stuff. Being a woodworker is a totally different type of craft. I'm creating furniture. Fixing things that already exist is a complete different niche. And this feeling that you get when you understood something, fixed it and made it work again is simply addicting. I know people that pivoted their entire career to this constant hits of dopamine that push you through a project like this one. And to be honest, once I left the garage, I couldn't wait to come back. This addiction makes the best craftsman. My brother-in-law is a car mechanic, and if you can be sure of one thing, then that he will not rest until he found a solution for your problem. Is this a good or a bad trade? That really depends on who you're asking. His customers couldn't be happier. But on family gatherings, we catch ourselves philosophing about what possibly could create such a specific noise. The new bearings arrived. Oh, and my dad finally answered me. This is the bearing puller. Actually a quite versatile tool, but for now it should be pulling this wheel off. Still I was struggling with that thing. I heated the parts with a blowtorch, expertly covered with my hand, so they expand a bit. Sometimes this is very helpful. Somehow it's still not working. The sweet sound of victory, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, that worked. Killed the bearing puller though. Now I can't get the bearings out. I don't know what exactly happened, but I think I applied too much pressure on the bearing puller and this threaded rod just have to give in. I put the bearings aside for now and moved to a totally different problem. The motor is currently set to receive 3-phase 400 volts, which I don't have in my shop. Of course I didn't buy a machine that I couldn't power, because what I knew is that somehow it can also be powered through 230 volts. How do I know that? There is no information on the internet, right? Some machines I saw online had a normal European plug and some had this 3-phase plug. But unfortunately, you can't just cut off one plug and solder on the other, which is what I hoped earlier. But sadly, due to physics reasons, it's simply not possible. But the previous owner ensured me that he had the machine running with one of those adapters, which he somehow couldn't find when I came by to pick up the Boy Electric. What a shame. But he wouldn't lie to me, am I right? But I have seen the Boy Electric with a standard plug. How is that possible? After a lot of research, I found that there are electric motors that accept both, but they need to be rewired for them to do so. And then I found this video. I pulled out some paper and a pen and started making notes in hope that I would understand what he is saying.
And for this Steinmetz circuit, I'll link you to a video about the Steinmetz circuit in star operation above. And now I want to use the Steinmetz circuit in delta operation.
Nothing of this made sense. I asked a friend who is an electrician about what I could do. Oh, just wire it from the Y connection to the Steinmetz circuit and add a 30 microfarad capacitor and you should be good. Here's a video of someone explaining it. Just follow him and everything should work out. Of course, back to school then. Eventually I thought I figured it out. I let my friend double check my thoughts and then went to it. I indeed needed to wire from the Y connection to the Steinmetz circuit and add a 30 microfarad capacitor to deliver enough starting current. I'll spare you with the days of electrical engineering theory that it took me to understand this sentence. That worked absolutely perfectly. All the research paid off in the end. Now I need to connect everything to the switch and fix it in place. But to do so, I first need to understand the switch itself. In the meantime, my dad came to visit, and I handed him the bearings I struggled with earlier. And he professionally couldn't get them out either. I had no other choice than to keep them. I cleaned them properly and hoped that maybe there is just some dirt in the way that makes that weird noise. And to my surprise, exactly that was the case. After I cleaned off the old grease and inserted some new one, they were buttery smooth again. After that decision, it was finally time to reassemble everything. But this does not mean the story is close to an end. First, I'm going to rebuild my nemesis, the front wheel, which was quite simple, because I don't need to change the bearings. A little bit more complex was the spindle though. I needed to push the bearings all the way down and they were getting stuck halfway. I found this rubber washer in the copper tube, with which I was able to push the first bearing in place. But the rubber washer got stuck and I needed to cut it free. All in all, rebuilding the machine felt like adult Lego with the use of a hammer, and if that doesn't sound exciting to you, I can tell you it definitely was. But just like Lego, if you missed a part and went on with building, you usually had to reverse a few steps, which in adult Lego means remove the housing and the bearing again. Now I was finally at the point where I could attach something back to the main frame again. And that felt great, because if you group the parts together, you end up with the spindle, the wheel, and the motor, which all are ready to be built in. Oh, and the leather, of course. But just like Lego, if you missed a part and went on with building, you usually... Oh wait, we had that part already. While rebuilding, I actually thought of one thing which I thought would not be that big of a problem. The pre-owner lost the original table, and it couldn't be harder to find something that can replace it. The hole where the table should go in has a very weird diameter, something around 43mm. And eventually, I ended up with the idea to just take a 43mm tube and weld it onto a steel plate. My experience with welding is very small and also a long time ago, so I went to a friend's car shop and asked if they could weld it for me. No problem, he said, but no one of us has experience with welding either. Still, I had no other choice to let them do it, and at least they have a professional welding machine. So one of them took my steel parts and started welding. Immediately I knew this is very far from square. But maybe I could level it out later. Little did I know that this should turn out to be unnecessary either way. But more on that later. After we were done watching my friend welding, another friend who actually owns the place asked what I need the thing for anyway. I told him the story, and halfway through he stopped me and asked, "Do you want a second Flott drill press? We threw one away months ago. Should be buried in a scrap container outside still." In disbelief I went outside and found a 1980s Flott TB10 ST, shattered on the bottom of the container. In excitement I pushed all the scraps out of the way. We lifted it out with a forklift and put it on a pallet for me to pick up eventually. I already knew I need to restore that machine as well. And by no chance it found me by accident. This had to be God's work, and I would love to make a video about that one as well. Let me know if you liked it so far. I really put much effort in this video and I am quite proud of it. Back to the Boy Electric for now. I came back with the table, and it turned out that it doesn't even fit at all. I used the screw to push it open a bit and it was very close to fit, but apparently outside of what the casted steel had to give. Unfortunately, I don't have it on camera, but I broke off a piece that came flying right off. The welded solution was off the table. I found a ground anchor online with a 42mm diameter, and with the new opening I forced in, I could clamp that in, even though it usually would have been too small. It's far from perfect, but it works for now. Eventually I need to find someone that can machine me a part that will fit better. And that's it. My adventure with the drill press no one heard about. The Flott Boy Electric. I restored the machine about 8 months ago and used it ever since. Let me tell you, this thing is extremely precise. Just listen to that. The machine is running so smooth that a drill bit seals the hole airtight. I am extremely happy with the machine, and restoring it was fun. I hope I could share some of the joy with you as well. I can't wait to dive into my new Flott restoration project and share that adventure with you. Thank you all for watching this far, and let me know if you made it to the end. See you on the next one.